Welcome, everyone. So glad you are joining us for today's deep dive. We've got a really fascinating and honestly super relevant case study by Dr. Jonathan H. Westover to get into today.
Yeah, it's a great one.
It really is. Our mission today is to explore the absolute breaking point of technology-mediated supervision, and we're using Meta's recent corporate restructuring as our prime evidence.
Right, because this is something that impacts basically anyone working in a modern organization right now.
Exactly. So to set the stage here, in early 2025, Meta quietly hit the brakes on this massive experiment they were running.
A huge reversal,
Yeah, they had been really pushing this organizational model where human managers oversaw 15 or more direct reports. 50!
which is just an incredible number of people for one human to manage.
Right. And the only reason they thought this was even plausible was because they were leaning so heavily on these new AI coaching tools. Like, they thought the AI would just pick up the slack.
Yeah, that was the theory. If the AI handles the transactional stuff, the human can just infinitely scale their oversight.
But then, suddenly, Meta's VP of Reality Labs announces a full retreat. They capped managers at around 20 reports because, they realized they actually had to prioritize real human attention.
It was a fascinating moment of realization for the tech industry.
Okay, let's unpack this because the way I look at it, I think of this meta experiment like trying to play chess on 50 different boards simultaneously.
Oh, that's a good way to picture it.
Right. And you're only even attempting this because you assume some computer program is going to, like, physically move the pawns for you.
Exactly.
But sure, maybe the AI saves you the muscle movement of sliding the pieces, but you still have to understand the strategy, the emotions, the shifting layout of all 50 separate games. You still carry the entire cognitive load.
And, well, the math just proves that strategy breaks down almost instantly.
It really does. And if you've ever felt ignored by a totally overwhelmed boss, or if you are that overwhelmed manager, you're going to have a lot of aha moments today.
For sure. Because to understand why Meta had to backtrack so quickly, we need to look at why companies are so incredibly tempted to build these mega teams in the first place.
Yeah. What's the lure there?
Well, there is this invisible mathematical trap waiting for them. So in organizational design, we have to talk about span of control.
Right, which is just the formal term for the number of direct reports a single manager has.
Exactly. And if we look historically, the ideal span of control was really narrow, usually just 5 to 7 people.
Up to 7, okay.
Yeah, because that allows for close oversight, minimal coordination loss,
Yeah.
and real human connection. The manager actually knows what's going on.
But that number has been creeping upward for a while, right?
Oh, massively.
Yeah.
Over the last decade or so, industry surveys showed the average span hitting 15. And in tech, it was regularly pushing past 20 even before the recent generative AI boom.
Wow. And the sources point out a few big reasons for this. Cost pressure is obviously huge. If you cut middle management, you save millions.
Absolutely. The payroll savings are massive.
And talent scarcity, too. Like, there aren't always enough truly good managers out there. But the one driver that I found really insidious was this empowerment rhetoric.
Oh, yeah, the corporate framing on that is wild.
It is. It's this idea that if a manager has 30 people, they physically can't micromanage you. So by totally starving you of supervision, they're actually, empowering you.
It's a brilliant little trick, really. They frame severe structural stretching as a huge benefit to your autonomy. You're the CEO of your own desk.
Right, right.
But the ultimate catalyst that made companies like Meta actually think they could push that number to 50 was the digital tools, Slack, Teams, and now, obviously, AI.
Well, this raises a question for me, though. Wait, if AI really is drafting the routine emails or tracking project statuses on a dashboard, shouldn't those connections just kind of manage themselves?
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
Why does the human manager still need to be the hub for all that daily chaos if the AI is doing the heavy lifting?
This raises an important question, and it really comes down to a fundamental formula that structural researchers Hackman and Vidmar came up with.
Okay, let's hear the math.
It calculates the communication links in any given team. The formula is n times n minus 1 divided by 2.
Okay, wait, let me do the math on that. So if you have a totally normal team of 5 people, using that formula, that's 10 potential one-on-one communication links.
Exactly. 10 dyadic links. Very manageable.
10 relationships. But if you jump to a team of 50, let me see, that doesn't just multiply by 10. That creates, oh my gosh, 1,225 potential communication links.
Over 1,000 potential interpersonal crosswires in one single team.
That is absurd.
It's staggering.
Hmm.
And while AI is amazing at the transactions, it can automatically format meeting notes or ping someone for an update, it completely fails at resolving the friction that comes from those links.
Right, because AI doesn't understand context or hurt feelings.
Exactly. When over 1,000 human interactions inevitably produce, territorial disputes or misaligned priorities, an algorithm cannot fix that. It takes human interpretation to untangle that web.
Wow. So the math just guarantees total chaos. But I want to know what that chaos actually looks like on the ground. Like for the company's bottom line and for the people trapped in it.
It's pretty bleak, honestly. Stretching managers this thin actively kills breakthrough ideas.
It kills innovation.
Yeah, systemically.
Mm.
There's this landmark study we have to talk about by Wu and colleagues. They analyzed 65 million papers and patents.
65 million. That is a massive data set.
It's huge. And what they proved conclusively is that small teams, like under 5 people, they're the ones that actually disrupt industries. They create paradigm shifts.
Okay, and the large teams?
Large teams just refine existing concepts. They don't disrupt.
Okay, wait, I really want to dig into that. Because on paper, it seems like having 50 brilliant minds in one room would spark wilder, more creative ideas than just 5 minds.
Right, it feels counterintuitive. But it comes down to the volume of consensus you need in a massive team and the absolute lack of a managerial shield.
Managerial shield, meaning what?
Well, if you have a radical, risky idea in a 5-person team, your manager has the time to sit down with you, right? They can understand the vision and actually protect your project from the corporate bureaucracy while you test it.
Oh, I see. High psychological safety.
Exactly. But meta managers with 50 reports, they were operating in permanent triage mode.
You're just fighting fires constantly.
Precisely. And when you are just triaging,
Yeah.
you physically don't have the bandwidth to foster creative friction. A risky idea just looks like more work you can't handle.
So the team organically just defaults to safe, boring improvements.
Yep. Whatever requires the least amount of managerial oversight.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, because it also totally stalls execution. The data says decision cycle times increase by 30% when manager spans exceed 15.
30% is a huge drop in speed to market.
It's massive. I compare it to, like, a massive multi-lane highway. It doesn't matter how wide the highway is or how many cars you pack onto it. If all those lanes suddenly merge into a single toll booth, traffic just stalls out.
That's the perfect analogy. The manager is the toll booth.
And the human toll on that manager, the toll booth operator, is just brutal. The sources talk about managers waking up at 4:30 in the morning just to clear emails.
Right, just to get back to zero before the actual meetings start.
Dealing with chronic inadequacy, deep burnout. But the part that really struck me was the equity erosion for the employees.
So the equity piece is huge and often totally overlooked.
Because when a manager is drowning, they don't have time to check on the quiet people. They default to the stars or whoever aggressively demands their attention.
Yes.
So basically, it's this dark irony. The squeaky wheel gets the promotion and the mentorship, while the quiet, neurodiverse innovator just gets completely ignored.
What's fascinating here is how that neglect physically changes the team's structure. Research shows that when a manager lacks the bandwidth to act as a bridge, the team fragments.
Like cliques start forming.
Exactly. Fault lines develop, little shadow networks on Slack that you are a part of. Information stops flowing, and the manager is too busy answering emails to even notice the team is falling apart.
Okay, so clearly 50 is completely unmanageable. But, capping every manager at 5 people is financially impossible for a big corporation. You'd go bankrupt.
Right, you can't have an entire company of 5-person teams.
So how do organizations right-size this? How do they find the magic number?
Well, the research reveals a really crucial insight. There is no single perfect number.
It depends on the situation.
Totally.
Yeah.
Entirely depends on the fundamental type of work being done. Organizations have to evaluate a few variables, primarily this concept called task interdependence.
Task interdependence. So how tightly coupled the work is, right?
Exactly. Do these employees need to constantly collaborate, hand things off, and adjust to each other in real time?
And you also factor in complexity and the maturity of the workforce, I'm assuming?
Yes. Are these 20-year veterans or fresh grads who need their hands held? But the data shows that highly interdependent, creative work like product design or deep research, it strictly requires spans of 5 to 10.
But if it's routine, modular work, you can go wider.
Right. Customer support, processing claims, standardized logistics. That kind of environment can handle 15 to 20.
But anything past 20 just dilutes attention too much, period.
Yes, regardless of how routine the job is.
The AstraZeneca case study from the sources was such a great example of auditing this. They noticed their R&D project times were lagging, people were quitting.
And instead of just arbitrarily firing or hiring managers, they mapped out the task interdependence across departments.
Yeah, they didn't treat all scientific work as the same thing. They realized their exploratory research scientists were dealing with massive uncertainty every day.
Right, they needed a manager to act as a sounding board constantly. They were failing experiments and needed a quick pivot.
So AstraZeneca made this really surgical move. They cut the manager spans in those specific exploratory units from 18 down to 10.
But they kept the standardized development teams, the ones just running the repeatable clinical trials, they kept them at 15 to 18.
And the result was wild. Engagement in the exploratory research groups climbed 12%.
Which is huge for a metric like that.
So what does this all mean? The way I synthesize this is with a musical analogy.
I love a good analogy. Go ahead.
Highly interdependent work, right? It's like a symphony orchestra. Everyone is playing a different instrument, reading different sheet music, and it has to harmonize perfectly.
Yes, exactly.
You absolutely need a conductor up there closely guiding the tempo. But routine work, that's like a track team running individual marathons.
Right, they're on the same team but running entirely separate races.
Exactly. The manager just points them to the starting line and occasionally hands out water. They don't need to synchronize their strides.
That orchestra versus track team analogy is perfect. But it brings us to a really harsh, real-world problem.
Okay, what happens when a company literally can't shrink its teams?
Right. Economic reality exists. If a massive budget cut happens and a manager just simply must have a wider span, say 20 people doing complex work, how do you keep the system from totally collapsing?
Well, this is where the structural fixes come in. And the sources gave some really good practical blueprints for this. First up is distributed leadership.
Salesforce is the classic case study for this one. They scaled so fast that engineering managers were stuck with 18 to 20 engineers.
Hitting that toll booth bottleneck we talked about.
Exactly. So instead of adding more managers, they broke those 20 engineers into self-managing pods of 4 to 6 people.
And each pod had a rotating technical lead, which I think is just brilliant.
It really is.
Because it wasn't a permanent promotion, right? It was a rotating peer position. So the peers handled the daily code reviews and the sprint planning. It completely distributed that crushing cognitive load.
While freeing up the actual formal manager to focus on long-term career growth and alignment between the cods.
It keeps the benefits of a small team without changing the official org chart.
Exactly. Now, the second big structural fix is managerial capability building. You can't just hand someone 20 people and expect them to lead the exact same way they did when they had 5.
Right. And Unilever had a really interesting approach to this. They built a marketing leadership lab with INSEAD. But the big thing, the really paradigm-shifting thing they did, was they completely removed individual contributor duties from their managers.
Yes, the dual career tracks.
But wait, let me push back on this a little bit. Aren't the best managers usually the highest performing individual workers?
Usually, yes.
So if you take your best marketer and you take away their day job of actually managing a brand, aren't you just turning your top talent into professional meeting attenders?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to reframe what you consider work. When you manage 20 people, managing is the work.
Managing isn't a side hustle anymore.
Exactly. Systems thinking, removing organizational obstacles, coaching at scale that is a full-time, highly specialized job. If you try to write code and manage 20 people, your code will be sloppy and your people will be miserable.
So treating managerial capacity as a finite, precious resource is vital.
Absolutely.
Which perfectly leads to the third fix, structural support. Capital One noticed their managers were burning out, so they explicitly capped tech spans at 15.
A hard rule.
Yep. And they hired project managers just to absorb the administrative tracking. But my favorite thing they did was instituting quarterly manager recharge days.
Oh, those are incredible.
0 meetings allowed.
Yeah.
If you've ever had a day where you realize at 5 p.m. you haven't done a single piece of actual deep thinking, you get why this is necessary.
Context switching just destroys strategic thought. You need days to just breathe and look at the big picture.
So true. And finally, we have to talk about AI. Because if you have to go big, AI is a tool, but it has to be used correctly.
Right, AI should be a second brain for the transactional stuff.
Yes, summarizing threads, scheduling across time zones.
It is a lifesaver for that.
Mhm.
But it is not a substitute for empathy. The moment you use AI to try and deliver a performance review or mediate a conflict, you completely sever the trust of your team.
AI is an assistant, not a stand-in for human connection, which totally brings us full circle to metacapping teams at 20.
Yep, they realized they couldn't fake the empathy.
So we've covered a ton of ground today. To bring it all together for you listening, we've seen that while AI can definitely extend our reach, it absolutely cannot replace human judgment, empathy, and the messy relational work of leadership.
Meta's course correction is empirical proof of that. Human connection still drives innovation.
Exactly. So whether you're an overwhelmed manager right now or an employee just feeling lost in a sea of 50 people, you now have the vocabulary.
You can use terms like task interdependence to advocate for a smaller team.
Or suggest distributed pods, you have the tools to push for a healthier structure.
But, before we sign off, I want to leave everyone with a final provocative thought.
Oh, okay, let's hear it.
So we've talked about AI as it exists today, right? Great at admin, terrible at real empathy.
Right.
But the tech industry is obsessed with making AI more emotionally intelligent. They are training it to read vocal tones, micro-expressions on video, everything.
Okay, yeah.
So if an AI assistant eventually does achieve a flawless, totally indistinguishable simulation of human empathy, will we eventually see the return of the 50-person mega team?
Oh, wow. That is a wild thought. Or, I mean, is there just something fundamental in human nature that will always reject being nurtured and mentored by an algorithm?
No matter how incredibly advanced it gets.
Right. Will we just always demand a human in the loop for our emotional support? Well, we'll let that marinate until next time.